of a January TBR, I have decided to join the masses and create a 26 and 26. Hi, I'm Olivia. This is AV Club where I talk horror, lit fic, weird books, whatever I want to talk about. And today I want to talk about 26 books that I am planning on reading this year. Doing it a little bit differently than last year, where my picks were a little bit more aspirational. You will not find the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy on it this year. I'm in fact picking a lot of books that I know for sure that I will be reading this year. Although I will say, like, I read a pretty good amount of my 25 and 25. And while last year I did a full 25 and 25 of my physical TBR, this year I've decided to go half and half. So about 14 books that are on my physical TBR and 12 upcoming releases that I just can't wait to get to. I don't believe any of these were on my 25 and 25, and if they were, you didn't see anything. And let's just alternate back and forth just to keep it interesting. And the first author is an author that I've been meaning to read a full-length novel from for so long, and I just haven't gotten to yet, and that's Tananarive Due. I have The Between on my physical TBR. This book deals with family, it deals with racism in Florida. It is described as being magical realist, psychological realist, a page turner. I'm very intrigued to see what all of that means. And then my first upcoming release that I can't wait to read is Japanese Gothic by Kylie Baker. I am very lucky to already have an e-arc of this sitting in my queue. I can't wait to get to it. Really, I haven't looked too much into the synopsis because I knew that I wanted to read the next release from Kylie Baker after loving Bat Eater last year. And so all I know is that it is a Gothic novel set in Japan, and I think deals with, family spooky stuff, the usual Gothic stuff. We'll find out what it's about together soon. The Planétarium by Nathalie Sarraute. This is a book that I acquired last year and is part of my goal to read more French literature, non-translated French literature. This is a book that I picked up at a used bookstore in Sydney. I've never heard anyone talk about this, but it does sound very interesting. I believe it's a little bit speculative, a little bit psychological, a little bit feminist. I'm very interested. I will also be taking any recommendations for French language books that you have for me. Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This is one that Kayla at Books and Lala loved and was a slightly controversial book that she loved, and that, just not a lot of people like it, but she likes it. And I love a controversial book. I love to know where I fall in the scheme of things. What I know about it is that it is dark academia adjacent, and really that's enough for me. Like, I like a weird college university vibe. So hopefully there is a good amount of campus life in it. Maybe my most anticipated book of next year is Molka by Monika Kim, and this, I have been looking forward to her release. I only had a snippet of the synopsis years ago whenever I read The Eyes Are the Best Part, which was the best horror book that I read in 2024. And this is a book that takes on the real issue in South Korea about hidden cameras, about not surveillance hidden cameras, but like a misogynist culture, non-consenting, taking videos of people for, I believe, kind of like fetishy reasons without their consent. And again, a horror. I think it sounds great. Hit Parade of Tears by Izumi Suzuki. Apparently I started reading this some years ago because look how sweet this bookmark of me and Daniel. Precious. But this is a short story collection by Suzuki. I read a kind of auto-fictional novel from her last year that I liked, but this is a speculative short story collection. I think kind of dark and weird. Sounds like my kind of thing. Dollface by Lindy Ryan. I've actually just started reading an arc of this. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's kind of taken me by surprise, and it is about this mom who is a horror author and is kind of struggling coming up with some creative great idea for her sophomore novel after having a pretty successful debut. And she has just moved to New Jersey. Her husband's job keeps them moving around a lot, and so she falls into this mom PTA group. There is some sort of cosmetics MLM kind of thing going on, which I think is what the doll face thing comes from. The PTA group's a little bit Stepford Wives adjacent. The novel's really clipping along. Like, it has good pacing to it, and I was already looking forward to it, and I can tell you that I'm already enjoying it. Enchanted April by Elisabeth von Arnim. This is a classic that follows some women who are staying at a small medieval Italian castle. Mediterranean beauty, warmth, and leisure weave their spell, and nothing will ever be the same again. I'm not exactly sure what this is about. Like, that's all I know. I think it's about the relationships between the women. It seems like some may have strained relationships with their husbands. Maybe there's new men that come on the scene whenever they're at this castle. I just love the idea of being at this like beautiful scenic castle, and I think as kind of like a pleasantish story going on, a little different to stuff that I usually read. The Caretaker by Marcus Kliewer. This is one that I have been wanting to read because I loved We Used to Live Here. And this is also, I think, kind of a creepypasta-ish story. I think there's a podcast in it. All of these are really good buzzwords for me. And I just knew that I was going to read whatever his next thing was. Whenever I know I'm going to read something because it's the author, I really don't look into the synopsis too much. There's really very few premises that I'm completely turned off by. Like, there's not anything where I'm like, oh, I'll never read a vampire story, or I'll never read. I don't really like zombies, but it's not like I'll be like, I'll never read a zombie story. There's nothing that I'm just going to shy away from. So the synopsis, kind of not my business until I'm going to review it. Bodies of Light by Jennifer Down. This is an Australian lit fic, big book, and apparently a very big sad book, and it was very popular a few years ago and I just didn't get to it then. I don't think it was published in the US at that time. I don't know if it has since, but I just got my hands on it after moving to Australia. A big book. I really think I'd rather read not on audiobook or not on ebook and really have the time to sit with it. So hopefully get to it this year. I don't know. I theoretically love a big sad book, but in actuality, as such a mood reader, I'm never like, you know what, I would really like to be depressed for a couple of weeks while I get through this book. So there's never like any kind of impetus to start reading it. So I might have to put it in kind of like a theme TBR in order to motivate myself to choose it to be the next book. Maybe Aussie April. Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. I really like Jennette McCurdy's memoir. I think I was like a couple of years too old to really be part of like watching whatever show she was on Nickelodeon, but I found her memoir very moving, relatable at times, and she is coming out with her debut novel. I'm just really looking forward to it to see what kind of fiction writer she's like, because I do feel like the memoir was well written, and this is about an inappropriate student-teacher relationship, or like an age gap relationship, something like that. And those are stories that for whatever reason I do find myself reading and not enjoying, but there's something kind of cathartic about reading those stories sometimes. So we will be reading it, as I'm sure many other people will be. Stoner by John Williams, kind of a modern classic that I've been hearing about a lot recently, and something to do about this man and a love of reading, a love of literature. I can't really tell if this whole book takes place after his death and it's kind of a recollection of his life and what it meant. The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. Again, I think this synopsis has something to do with someone who was maybe famous or something along those lines. I'll put a synopsis up here, but really I want to read this because I've loved reading from Ashley Winstead multiple times in the past. Two of her thrillers I really enjoyed. I don't think this one is a thriller, and I haven't read any of her like romances or general fiction books, but I am interested to continue along with her. Affinity by Sarah Waters. I can't wait to get to more Sarah Waters after loving Fingersmith last year. This one has a disgraced spiritualist. It has a Victorian prison. So it already sounds adjacent to things that I loved about Fingersmith. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure when I'll pick this up. Maybe Dowathon again. I'm more figuring out how to pace myself on Sarah Waters books. Spoiled Milk by Avery Curran. A haunted boarding school, something weird, gothic, spooky going on. Two of my favorite things put together, so how could we go wrong? I love a spooky book and I love a school book. Really looking forward to it. something by Philip K. Dick this year because I have so many to read. Looking through my books, We Can Build You sounds like one I might pick up soon. A toxic love affair with sentient robots, mental illness, a pitch perfect robotic replica of Abraham Lincoln, shady businessman. I think this Lincoln robot is wooing a woman. I don't know. It's a Philip K. Dick plot for sure. Sounds wild, sounds cool. Another must-read author, Clay McLeod Chapman. It has a book coming out this year called Bodies of Work, and this one is about a painter who was haunted by the spirits of subjects that he killed. Described as a revenge novella. It just sounds like a great time. Clay McLeod Chapman also has something described as a dark romance coming out this year. Not something I would usually pick up, but maybe because he's a must-read author, I will also find myself reading that one. The Sellout by Paul Beatty is a demented satire of our horrible times we're living in. It takes on stereotypes about race in America and has a plot where it's proposed that slavery should be unabolished. This was very popular a few years ago, and it is my time to get to it this year. Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Paul Tremblay. Love Paul Tremblay, love Philip K. Dick. This book has something to do with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and I will find out at the time of reading it. The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida. This is one that we are covering this year on GG No Reread on my podcast. This follows a closeted gay man in Sri Lanka who has to go on a quest after his death to find 7 moons in order to lead a man and woman he loves to a cache of photos that will somehow rock the country. It sounds ambitious and wild. I think it's going to be a very good book club pick. Worry Doll by Laura McPhee-Browne. She is a must-read author ever since I loved Cherry Beach a few years ago. 2020 was when that book came out now, which it's almost 6 years ago. It's crazy. That was about a beautiful sapphic friendship full of yearning, and Worry Doll is about a, I believe, age gap romance that's sapphic and probably full of yearning too. I feel like I'll just melt. I can't wait to read it. Also, an Australian author. The Beach by Alex Garland is also one that we're covering on GG No Reread this year, and it follows tourists who are going to this Thai island getaway beach that they've over glamorized, and then things go wrong. I've never watched the movie that Alex Garland made based on this, so I'm really excited to read it, and I also think it's going to be a great book club pick. We're talking about it with Far Cry, which has a pretty similar plot. It's going to be a good time, so follow along and check it out. Hell Days by Laura Elizabeth Willett, another Australian author. This has something to do with PMDD. I think it is somewhat nonfiction memoir, but also mixed with fiction elements. I loved West Girls that she wrote. I read that a couple of years ago whenever I first moved here, and yeah, she's an incredible author. This sounds really interesting. I love kind of a mixed genre book, and I feel like the topic is in good hands. Dark Carnivals by W. Scott Poole. This is a book that has been on my shelf for a long time, and it is so up my alley. I don't know what keeps me from reading a nonfiction from start to finish on my shelf, that I'm more of an audiobook listener, but this is just like so up my alley. It is about modern horror and the origins of American Empire. And it's looking both at American horror movies as well as like true American horrors about gun control, about racism, etc. And I think looking at these topics together is more timely than ever. And then my last book, very aptly named, is The Endling by Kylie Job. This is also an Australian author. I believe this is a debut, but it's also just going to be the first time that I read from this author. First of all, this cover's amazing. And it follows a feminist utopia on a mountaintop in the bush in Australia. And this feminist utopia starts to break apart whenever one of the women gives birth to a boy. And there's also something about this orchid going extinct. I'm very intrigued to read this, but I do feel like it could go either way for me. Usually when there's a plot put forth about all women communities, all women utopias, dystopias, whatever, it gets a little bit gender essentialist in a way that I feel falls short as like a strong critique of anything. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm going into it with an open heart, open mind. I'm sure it's great. And I'm pretty sure that's 26. So thank you so much for joining me today. I am so looking forward to this reading year, and I can't wait to get to both the books that I've already talked about, the upcoming releases, and I'm sure so many other great books along the way. Tell me about what you are most excited to read this year, any new releases that you feel like I should have included in this list that you think that's an Olivia book. I'm always down for a recommendation. But until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.